Hey everyone, this is Fred of Kaz-Magic. Thank you for tuning in to another video on learning how to draw. What we're going to do in tonight's video is that we're going to learn how to draw female. Well, basically just the figure of a female. I've actually come across a lot of artists, mostly males, that say that they have trouble actually drawing the female body. And hopefully this will all be knocked out in one lesson, but if I have to, I'll make it into two videos. Hopefully it won't get to that point right there. But let's get our pencils and papers together. Let's get started. First off, I want to say a big shout out to the committee and Rafe White, Sharon White, and a few of the others for Southern Geek Fest 2.0. I went there 2 weeks ago to do a table for a friend of mine that had passed away back in December, and it was a wonderful experience being able to do something for him, and I'm very glad to have done it for him. I just wish he was there to actually see it all. He was like a mentor to me, and definitely want to say that he was a swell guy. You definitely be missed, big buddy. But anyway, so this lesson here, as I was talking about, we're gonna concentrate on how to draw females. One thing for sure, that if you want to see any of the broken down details of what I have had about the female body and the male body, you can definitely check out my basic tutorial videos, and you can go back and look at those if you want to, like, get detail by detail of exactly like, not muscle wise, but just how everything is exactly mapped out. So let's go ahead and get started with the female body. Alright, so for one thing, as I had mentioned in my earlier videos with the basic tutorials, is that the female body is pretty much like a Coke bottle figure. When you look at a Coke bottle figure, it's like the number 8, except for starts off that way, because this right here is pretty much like the neck, and it gets down to the shoulders right here, where this right here is going to be the torso, and then it actually goes down to the hip, down to like the top part of the legs. Now this right here is just, like I said, it's just a basic Coke bottle figure, as I was talking about earlier. So we'll just kind of like give you an example of that right there. But also, like I was saying, it's like the figure 8. So you get what I mean by that right there. Quite simple. I know that I actually kind of took a little bit of a shorter route to actually explain that, but in order for you to actually really get a good understanding of it, I had to at least give you like some kind of a idea of what you're actually going to be looking for while doing that. But let's get on down to what you're really trying to figure out. All right, so as I was saying about the female body, now the face is one thing. I think I might have actually given out tutorials about face before, but I'll go ahead and include the face as a way to actually map out for my benefit of how I actually draw my characters. Some people actually start off with just the body, and then they work on the neck, and then the face. But me personally, I much rather just start off with the face, so that way I can actually have a general idea of what I'm actually going to have this to be mapped out as. Alright, so I'm actually not going to use any kind of reference, but I probably should. I probably should go to like postmaniacs.com. I'll actually have that in the descriptions down underneath. There was one other website that I found out about, and it's from a good friend of mine named Preston Azevedo. Big shout out to him as well. I actually have some of his artwork hanging above my bed on my wall, and we've actually done maybe like a couple of shows together. We got Mississippi Comic Con coming up very soon as well, so he'll be there along with me as well. He's a fantastic artist. Definitely check him out. But he's also known by the name of Issa Zach. So I'll definitely put that in the description as well if I have to, or I'll just insert it in the video. But anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and draw a face first. Alright, so I pretty much got that right there. And I'm just going to go ahead and add my lines to actually just give that a little guide. I'm sorry, I feel a little OCD about that. But speaking of which, starting off with the neck. And then you got your torso area. Now, keep in mind that I'm actually going to put just the shoulders here for a little bit. Just the indication of it. And then I'm just not going to do the arms right then and there. I'm actually going to go straight down to where you're actually getting down to the abdominal area. On down to the hips. Alright, so this is the part where I was talking about with the Coke baller figure. So you're seeing like how there's a curve right there. Go ahead and draw an arrow for that side. An arrow for that side right there. So you're seeing how, like, with this right here, it's very sensual looking, and it's actually very exotic, which is why the Coke bottle is, like, the main thing that a lot of people actually refer to when they say a woman's body is like a Coke bottle figure. So you got the curve that's going acute, but it's got a nice little curve right there. And then on the other side, it's got a nice curve going inside as well. And you can turn it into like different shapes or whatever. I'm actually going to play around with this one a little bit more. But even if like you're doing a pregnant woman, think about like where it's all going to actually be mapped out at. Like a pregnant woman, maybe like 7 months, 8 months or so. You see her actually showing off somewhere around right there. But that's still staying true to what you're seeing on the outside right there. And that's why I'm not erasing those lines, because I actually want you to see where the actual outline is. So even if you're actually drawing the female body and you're actually trying to come up with different shapes, you're always going to have that same basic shape right there. Hang on just a second. I got YouTube going. There we go. You're still going to have that same basic shape right there. So this is where we're getting at right here. So I'm going to map out of where her curves are going to be. So I'm drawing my arrow right there. And then I'm actually going to draw, let's see, I'm going to map it out to where her body is actually going that way. So I'm going to draw an arrow that is going downward. I'm not going to really think about what's going upward, because I'm more likely focusing on like where her shape is going to be. So let's go ahead and draw the outline right here. And you see I actually got that little curve going right there. So I'm not really worried about this curve actually going straight upward on the front. I was actually more likely worried about it going down. And then you see at the back, I actually have the curve going both ways. So that way it'll let me know that this is what I want the back to look like. Now, as far as like with the bosom area, you're actually going to have the reproductive well, that's kind of a bad word, my bad. Basically you're just going to have this part of the alignment of where the bosom will be located. So just drawing a small little detail there, and then you're kind of spacing it out a little bit. That's why I got that line right there. So you're just kind of like mapping out as well of where you're going to have that to be stopping at. So that's one part right there. And so you got your other parts right here. So you're basically just drawing the circles to actually have that kind of detail rolling for the upper part of the female body. So that right there should be a very good explanation for that part. But I'm going to actually make more samples so that way you can actually get a really good gist of it. Alright, so this right here is a somewhat frontal view that you can understand, and I'll go back and I will erase that. Definitely feel free to ask questions about any of this if you need any more details about where exactly you want to have this. Alright, so I'm going to actually do it from the profile view. So first, I'm going to start off my head like I did with this one right here. So I got the head, and I'm not going to worry about my little guys, but I'll just draw that one line, particular line right there. All right, so got my neck drawn. Next is going to be the torso. And draw my little shoulders right there, so that way I can actually have an idea where to stop it. And this right here, when you look at this one line, it's going to curve back that way. When you look at this line right here, this is basically somewhat the spinal cord, or this is your center. Like everything is going to have some kind of center to it. But yeah, just think of this as like your spinal cord. When you're actually thinking about your body, where's your spinal cord actually located? Your spinal cord is actually located right behind you, but that's not the case right there. This right here is going to be the center, but your spinal cord is going to be back here in this particular area. All right, so once again, like I said, I'm actually going to have the hips right down here. All right, so I got the torso, got the hips, got the shoulders, and I got the head. And that's, like I said, that line is going to be the whole center of everything. So where am I going to actually map out this? Once again, for the front, this curve, drawing an arrow, is going to be going down. While this back part, I'm going to have an arrow that's going to be going both ways. Now, check out what I've actually done with this area here. Now, as I was explaining in my earlier videos, drawing like the human anatomy with the female, the hip area is going to actually be wider than everything else. For like the males, the torso area is always the widest because of the fact that males have the ability to have upper body strength compared to the female. The female, on the other hand, the reason why their hips are wide is because of the fact that they have to give birth to a child. So you have to actually think about that right there as well. The pelvic area is going to be different on both genders. Like for the male, the pelvic area is going to be more closed in. The pelvic area for the female is going to be a little more spread out. So, see about getting this right here. And then this right here is the front of the body. This back area is going to have the shoulder blade, the latissimus dorsi right here. Or more likely the upper part of the back or the upper part of the back of the torso. On down to the hip area. All right, so I got that right there. And once again, we're down to the part with the bosom. Go ahead and draw my neck first. And the bosom area is not going to be all the way up to up here. It's actually going to be in this area. So that's another part of me actually mapping it out. That's why I was saying earlier, like when you're thinking about the female body, look at how this right here is actually mapped out for where it's going to be located. From what I've read in the anatomy for the artist, is that everything on the body is somewhat like head length. So let's say, for instance, that if I were to measure this head here, if I were to bring it down here, this right here is actually somewhat close to where the size of the head is. And then when I actually bring it down, guess what? There's another part of the head right there. And then it just goes so far on. And the only part of where it's actually not going to be as, I would say, probably best. Sorry, the dog started me. The only part where it's not going to actually be very accurate is when it gets down to the legs, because the legs themselves have, certain length of their own. Same for like with the arm, but the arm compared to the head actually has a little bit of the size of the head. So we'll get down to that a little bit later too. But anyway, down to the bosom area. That's my center right there. So now you see where I actually have everything mapped out for the front side, and I have mapped out for the profile view. All right, so what if you're actually working with certain body positions of like when a woman is actually trying to make her turn or when she's actually reaching for something. So we'll go with that right there. Let's see. Start off with the head first. And this time you're going to be doing something a little bit different. So if you're actually drawing with me while you're learning this, feel free to do so. Go ahead and get my guide right there for the face. All right, so here's your neck. That's going to start off. But what I'm going to actually do with that neck is that I'm actually going to curve it down this way. So here's how I'm going to map this out. And I've actually seen this from another artist who I've gotten a book from. Not I didn't buy from him personally, but I actually found it at Walden Books before Walden Books actually closed down. It was called Drawing Fantasy Females by Tom Fleming. And I've actually learned that when I looked at what he was doing, he actually had more guides on how to actually set it up to where you're really thinking about where the curves are going to actually stop on the woman to actually make her look sexy or to make her look more appealing. You really want to just draw attention in for what they're actually going to do with the body shapes and all. So as you can see, I got my line right here for the shoulders, but I also got this line here for the hip area. All right, so drawing my torso. And then leaving that right there as my spine, like I was telling you before. And I'm actually going to draw the hip right here. Now, one thing I am going to go ahead and do is that I'm going to go ahead and draw out a little bit of part of the shoulders for more detailing. so that way you can actually have a much better idea of how everything is actually going to be laid out. And I'm even going to draw out a little bit of the hips. Alright, so here we go. The guide of how this is going to actually turn out. Now this time, you're actually, for this side right here, this is more of a profile view. You're thinking about how that that right side is actually going to be curved out, while the left side is going to be more acute. So you're thinking about that leg area first, of where that's going to go down. But here's the ticker. You're going to have an arrow that's going to actually be separate from that. That's going to go into two directions. So you see where it's actually going down for that part right there? This part is going to be going outward. Alright, so let's see how this is actually going to turn out. Drawing that left side. I'm sorry, that right side. I don't know why I'm getting my sides mixed up all of a sudden. Went ahead and drew out the legs first. Alright, then actually drew the female left side. Go ahead and get my neck out. Drawing for that little bit of that arm. Alright, and then, as I was saying before about the bosom area, map out where that's going to be located so you see it's in that center again. And then you're thinking about angles of how the bosom is actually going to be laid out. So, as you can see with this right here, this is more frontal view. This right here is more profile view. So, exactly how is this going to really work out? You're going to think about that bosom being a little more upward. And for this side right here, but this right here is going to be diagonal from the other. So let's see about getting that worked out very well. Alright, I seem to have gotten that pretty good. So let's go ahead and try to erase some of these lines, so that way you can actually see how all of these have turned out. I know that I keep trying to remember exactly what the name of that site was that Issa Zach told me. I can't really remember the name. All I know it was Pose something. But like I said, I will definitely message him and find out exactly what it was called, because I'm very interested in actually going to that site and seeing it for myself. But you could also go to like DeviantArt to actually see more references. As you can tell, I've been doing this for so long, so that's why I'm actually not using any kind of references as possible, because I feel like it would take too long for me to actually try to explain this if I were to be using references. I'm actually going to keep those arrows. It's actually been a while since I've been able to do a YouTube video. I've actually been very busy doing conventions. I recently did Mississippi Comic Con is coming up, but I did Southern Geek Fest and I did Free Comic Book Day with a local comic book store. I've also done Anime Fest. So it's been quite a busy year for me, and I'm actually currently working on a comic book that I'm trying to get off the ground. So that's another thing that kind of slowed me down at the moment. And work, I work at a restaurant. For those of you that don't know, um, work has also been uh, hindering me from a lot of free time. So now that school is out, you know, a lot of people have graduated, and some of them are getting ready to go on to college. It freed up some time for me to be able to do more videos. All right, so that right there is how you do the curves that I was talking about with the female body. Although I am going to have more of an idea for you guys to actually take on, like with something else. Like for instance, um, I'm actually going to teach you a little bit more about curves because, like I said, this is going to end up being like a two-part video. And I think it's a very good thing that it is going to be a two-part video because there's so much for you to understand about the human body, and especially like with the female, because female takes much more explanation than it would for a male, concerning the fact that you have to understand the whole differentiations of like how each body part works and all. But I say maybe like one more idea of me actually showing you guys about curves right quick. Probably for like another sample right here. So this time I'm not gonna draw the neck. I mean, I'm not gonna draw the head. I'm actually just gonna start from the torso area. And this time what I'm gonna do, I'm actually going to have this curve going this way and have the hip area right here. Arms are going to actually be, oh, sorry, the shoulder is going to be right here with the arm stretching upward. And the hip, or should I say the pelvic, is going to be right there. With this going that way and another one going that way. So you really can't see the other side of this right here. All right, so here's another map out. You're going to have this upper part of the body actually curving down this way. But here's the ticker of what we're going to actually think about with this one right here. Since this upper part of the body is actually going that way, since the arrow is actually pointing down, sorry, I'm going to make that a little bit more noticeable. The upper part of the body is actually going down, curving that way. You're going to have this area actually folding up to where it's going to be a backwards L shape. So that right there is your general idea of how the front's going to be laid out. The back area, of course, like I was explaining. Oh, I'm sorry I didn't draw that arrow right there. Why didn't I do that? Sorry about that. But yeah, this back area is gonna have that same acute effect at all times, up and down, but more likely acute. Okay, maybe acute going that way, but you think about that arrow being obtuse, but everything on the human body is actually acute on the back, when the front part is actually obtuse, while this bottom area here is more likely acute, but is actually being like a backwards L. So you see the arrow actually making this one going up and down, but when you get back here, the leg is actually going to be straight. So let's go ahead and get that mapped out. And I'm actually making sure I draw that left leg first. Go ahead and draw my shoulder here. All right, so I got the back that I'm working on. And then got your right leg right here. You're seeing a little bit more of that right leg because it's actually being raised up. So think about where your spine is actually going to be located when you see that. Like, you got a little bit of a slight thing showing up with the back leg, exposing that a little bit of the right part of the back. So you're also thinking about like how things are going to actually be exposed as well. All right, so for the bosom area, it's actually going to be a little more upward. My bad. Or more likely, it's going to be even. I think for this area, the bosom is actually going to be a little bit more even, so we'll go with that. All right, so let's go ahead and erase that so that way we can see the results on this one. All right. Show a little bit of that muscle there. All right, and there's the results of how that one turned out. So I hope that this lesson actually helped with the first part of the explanation. Um, Next video, I'm gonna actually get down to like the legs, and we'll probably put everything together because I think the legs will be a little bit easier to explain. But uh, definitely leave some feedback. Have some if you have any questions, best definitely leave some in the comment area, and I'll be glad to actually answer them to the best of my abilities. But you guys have yourselves a great night, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.